Welcome back to the deep dive. Okay, so today, well, we're setting aside the political papers for a bit.
Yeah, picking up muskets instead, you could say. A very specific piece of hardware, actually.
Exactly. We're not just tracking abstract disagreements anymore. We're picturing ourselves right there. Guadalupe River, muddy bank, staring at this antique cannon.
It really is amazing how this one object, this small cannon, becomes the flashpoint. It was originally meant for something entirely different, wasn't it?
Completely different. Given for defense against Native American raids, and suddenly it's the symbol of defiance against Santa Anna's entire regime.
The question becomes huge. Is it just about this piece of metal? Or is it about the fundamental right of these Texian colonists to, defend themselves at all?
And that symbolism just explodes, doesn't it? Our sources, they compare it directly to Lexington and Concord.
They do, which is, a powerful comparison. Maybe a bit stretched for some historians, but for the people there, that's how it felt. This confrontation at Gonzales wasn't just a local dispute.
No, they saw it as, what was the phrase? An open outrage upon the civil authorities of Texas and upon the Constitution.
That's the language they used. It framed the whole thing. This wasn't just rebellion. It was defending the established constitutional order as they saw it.
So by the end of this deep dive, you'll get the full story. We'll talk about the famous come and take it flag, the tense standoff, that failed parley.
And crucially, how this one single brief skirmish really did set the ball of revolution, as one source puts it, decisively in motion. It ended any real hope of peaceful compromise.
The tug is stopped. The shooting started. We move from consultation to combat.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay, let's start at the beginning. With the cannon itself, our star player, tell us about his origins.
Right, so this famous cannon actually starts its life in Texas as a gift from the Mexican government, no less.
A gift? When was this?
Back in 1831, it was given specifically to the settlers of Green DeWitt's colony there in Gonzales.
And you mentioned its purpose, defense against Native American raids. What was life like on that frontier in 1831? Why did they need a cannon for that?
Oh, it was incredibly dangerous. You have to picture these settlements, Gonzales, Austin's colonies. They were tiny outposts, really isolated, surrounded by vast territory.
And not always friendly territory?
Not at all. The sources are full of accounts of raids, primarily Comanches, but other groups too. These weren't small incidents. They involve theft of horses, livestock, vital resources, and, tragically, loss of life. These raids were constant threats.
So the cannon wasn't for show. It was a practical tool for survival.
Absolutely vital. It represented the community's ability to protect itself. It was kept by the local authorities in Gonzales, the alcalde. It was recognized government property, yes, but assigned to the town for their defense. Subject to duty, sure, but it was their defensive tool.
Taking it away wasn't just taking property. It was undermining their security, their very existence almost.
Precisely. And that's why the demand for its return later felt like such a betrayal, such an attack.
Now, there's a little historical quirk here about the cannon itself, isn't there? Its size.
Yes, it's a fascinating detail that speaks to the, maybe, confusion or the different perspectives of the time. Some sources call it a valuable 4-pounder cannon.
Okay, 4-pounder. That refers to the weight of the cannonball it fired, right?
Correct. But then another source describing the Texians actually using it in the battle calls it a brass 6-pounder.
Huh. 4 pounds, 6 pounds. Is that a significant difference, militarily speaking?
Well, yes and no. A 6-pounder is obviously a bit more substantial than a 4-pounder. But honestly, both are pretty small caliber artillery. Often described as maybe a swivel gun type. It's not like it was some huge siege cannon that could level fortifications.
So the exact size isn't the main point.
I don't think so. The discrepancy itself is interesting. Maybe shows how information traveled or how people perceive it. But whether 4 or 6 pounds, its real value wasn't military might. It was purely symbolic. Political?
It represented local control, local defense.
Exactly. It was their gun, given for their safety. And holding onto it became a symbol of resisting centralized control. A small gun, maybe, but representing a massive principle.
Which brings us to 1835, 4 years after it was given, September. Why does the Mexican government suddenly want this little cannon back so badly?
It's all politics, purely political. It stems directly from Santa Anna. By 1835, he's making his big move, consolidating power, shifting away from the federalist system.
This system based on the Constitution of 1824, which the Texians loved because it gave states and regions a lot of autonomy.
Exactly that constitution.
Yeah.
Santa Anna was actively working to dismantle it, to overthrow those federal institutions and establish a strong central government, a dictatorship, essentially.
And part of centralizing power means making sure nobody else has guns.
Precisely. You can't have potential pockets of armed resistance if you want total control. So the demand for the Gonzales cannon wasn't some random administrative request. It was the opening move, the first concrete step in a wider policy to disarm the Texian colonists.
Implementing the new rules from Santa Anna's self-made Congress, as one source puts it, designed to crush any dissent.
That's the context. It was about control, taking away the means of resistance, starting with this very visible symbol in Gonzales.
So who gets the job of actually retrieving the cannon?
The order falls to Colonel Domingo de Ugarteche. He's the top Mexican military commander in the region, based in San Antonio de Bexar.
And what do we know about Ugarteche? Was he eager to crack down?
Actually, the sources suggest he was pretty cautious, which is really telling, I think. It's a detail that often gets glossed over.
Cautious. Why would a colonel hesitate to retrieve a small cannon from some settlers?
Because he had history, specifically the Battle of Velasco back in 1832, just 3 years earlier.
Ah, okay. Remind us what happened at Velasco.
Velasco was a major clash. Texian colonists, supporting the Federalist cause at that time, besieged a Mexican fort garrisoned by Centralist troops under Colonel Ugarteche's command, actually.
So Ugarteche himself was involved.
He was the commander whose troops were besieged, though he wasn't personally present at the final battle. But his forces were there. And the Texians, they fought hard, used makeshift fortifications, showed they were skilled with their rifles.
And they won, didn't they?
They did. They forced the surrender of the Mexican garrison, and Ugarteche's forces took significant casualties, maybe 15 or more killed, many wounded. So Ugarteche knew from experience, or certainly by reputation reinforced by Velasco, that these Texians weren't just farmers you could push around.
They'd fight back. And they were good shots.
Very good shots. And they'd fight from cover.
Yeah.
Sending his dragoons out into the colonies wasn't a guaranteed success. It was risky. He knew retrieving this cannon could easily spark a much wider conflict, one that would be costly for his men. He was reluctant.
But orders are orders.
Orders are orders. So despite his reservations, Ugarteche has to act. He puts together a detachment, not just a couple of soldiers either, about 150 dragoons. These are cavalry troopers, pretty much elite troops for the time and place. He puts them under the command of Captain Francisco de Castañeda.
Wow, 150 dragoons. Just to collect one small cannon. That sounds disproportionate.
It was absolutely intended as a show of force.
Yeah.
Meant to intimidate the colonists in Gonzales into immediate compliance. No arguments, just hand it over.
The message was clear. The central government means business.
Unmistakably. The mission was simple on paper. Go to Gonzales, get the cannon, bring it back to San Antonio, symbolically, and local resistance before it even starts.
So Castañeda leads his 150 dragoons out from San Antonio. When do they arrive near Gonzales?
They reach the area on Tuesday, September 29th, 1835. They arrive on the west bank of the Guadalupe River right across from the town.
And this is where the plan immediately hits a snag. A big, watery snag.
Exactly. Castañeda arrives expecting maybe some grumbling, perhaps a tense handover. Instead, he finds defiance. Organized defiance.
What had the Gonzales folks done?
They were ready for him. They'd anticipated this move. The core group, who became known as the Old 18.
The guys who initially stayed behind to guard the cannon while messengers went for help.
That's them. They, along with others in the town's Committee of Safety, had done something very simple but very effective. They moved the ferry boat.
The main way across the river.
A main way. And not just the ferry. They secured all the canoes, anything that could be used to cross, and brought them over to the east bank, the town side.
And the river itself? Was it easy to ford?
Nope. The sources mention it was high from recent rains. So without boats, crossing was basically impossible for Castañeda and his cavalry. They were physically blocked.
A natural moat enforced by the colonists. Brilliant, really.
Simple, but effective. It bought them crucial time.
And their official response to Castañeda's demand for the cannon?
An immediate, flat refusal. Communicated through their Committee of Safety. They weren't hiding their feelings. They explicitly stated they saw this as a government trying to impose military rule. The government of the bayonet, they called it. They were defending their rights.
This must have sent shockwaves through the colonies. What did this action do politically?
It was huge. It instantly vindicated the war party, the faction among the Texians, who had been arguing that Santa Anna was a tyrant and that armed resistance was inevitable.
They could now say, see, we told you so. They're sending the army to take our means of defense.
Exactly. It completely undercut the peace party, or the temporizers. These were the colonists, often older, wealthier settlers, who still hoped for a negotiated settlement. They wanted to restore the 1824 Constitution without resorting to war.
What were their arguments, the peace party?
They argued that war would be disastrous. They'd lose everything, their land, their property, maybe their lives. They believed petitions, diplomacy, maybe working with Federalist allies within Mexico, could still resolve the crisis. They feared open conflict against the Mexican army.
But Castaneda's arrival with the 150 dragoons kind of blew that argument out of the water, didn't it?
It really did. It was hard evidence that the central government wasn't interested in talking anymore, at least not on terms the colonists found acceptable. They were using military force to impose their will. This action gave the war party unstoppable momentum. It killed the temporizing policy.
So realizing they needed more than just the old 18 to hold off 150 soldiers, what did the Gonzales Committee do?
They immediately dispatched riders, express riders, heading east, fanning out to the nearby colonies, Brazoria, San Felipe, Mina, which is now Bastrop, calling for help, urgently.
The colonial communication network in action. Did it work?
Incredibly well. The sources give us concrete examples. There were groups of volunteers already organizing, planning maybe to march south to intercept General Costa's forces near the coast.
Coast being Santa Anna's brother-in-law, bringing reinforcements to crack down on Texas.
That's him. But when these volunteers, say, down near Bastrop, got the news from Gonzales around September 27th or 28th, they immediately changed plans. They turned around and headed straight for Gonzales.
So the call for aid mobilized people quickly. The network was effective.
Very effective. It showed a level of coordination and shared purpose among the colonies that maybe even surprised the Mexican commanders.
Meanwhile, Castañeda is stuck, west bank of the Guadalupe. His 150 dragoons are just waiting.
Pretty much. He can't cross. He can't really negotiate with people who've taken the boats and are openly defying him, so he holds his position. And this leads to this tense standoff that lasts for several days.
And across the river on the Gonzales side, the Texian numbers are growing.
Day by day. Men are trickling in, then arriving in larger groups. Farmers leaving their fields, settlers grabbing their long rifles. It's a real militia gathering, not a formal army, but determined individuals rallying to the cause.
What must that have been like for Castañeda, watching the force opposite him get stronger every day?
Increasingly precarious. Cavalry needs forage for the horses. They need supplies. They're camped out in the open, exposed. Morale probably wasn't great. He's got orders to retrieve a cannon, not start a full-blown war, but the situation is escalating rapidly beyond a simple retrieval mission.
It really highlights that asymmetry, doesn't it? The professional soldiers constrained by orders and logistics versus the locals fighting on their home ground, motivated by defense and improvising.
Absolutely.
Right.
The Texians are electing officers on the spot. John Henry Moore emerges as the commander. They're digging in, preparing. The initiative is shifting to them.
Okay, so the standoff lasts a few days. The Texian force grows. They feel strong enough now. They decide to act. We're talking about the morning of October 2nd, 1835.
That's right. After about 3 days of this tense waiting game, the Texians decide they're not going to wait for Castañeda to somehow find a way across or get reinforcements. They're going to take the fight to him.
But before the fighting, there's one more act of defiance, a very famous one, the flag.
Ah, yes, the come and take it flag. It's probably the most enduring image from this whole event.
Tell us about it. Who made it? What did it look like?
Well, the traditional account, mentioned in several sources, though sometimes debated in its finer details, attributes it to two women in Gonzales. Sarah DeWitt, wife of the colony's founder, Green DeWitt.
The colony the cannon was originally given to?
Exactly. Her and her daughter, Eveline. The story goes they took a piece of white cotton cloth. Some say it was maybe from Eveline's wedding dress, adding another layer of symbolism.
Wow.
And on this cloth, they painted a crude image, black paint apparently, a simple drawing of the cannon itself. Blow it, the Lone Star of Texas. And then those immortal words, come and take it.
That's just
Really
incredibly
creative, huh?
bold. It's not just refusing, it's taunting, daring them.
It's pure psychological warfare. It removes any doubt about their intentions. We're not hiding this cannon, we're flying a flag over it, challenging you to try and take it. It perfectly crystallized their stance. We have a right to this, a right to defend ourselves, and we will fight you for it.
It transforms the cannon from a mere object into this potent symbol of resistance.
Absolutely. And it forces Castañeda's hand even further. He can't ignore a direct challenge like that.
So, with this defiant flag possibly flying, the Texians make their move. Early morning, Friday, October 2nd.
Right. Colonel John Henry Moore leads the Texian force. Now, estimates vary slightly, but the sources suggest the overall Texian strength had grown to maybe 160, 180 men by this point. Not all crossed initially, though.
How many went across the river?
The group that crossed first seems to have been around 50 men, mostly mounted, and crucially, they brought the cannon with them.
They manhandled that brass cannon onto whatever raft or boat they used and got it across the swollen river, in the dark.
Apparently so. A pretty difficult operation. They crossed over to the west bank, Castañeda's side, likely under the cover of darkness or very early morning fog. They were taking the offensive.
What happened when they encountered the Mexican troops?
The initial contact was with a Mexican outpost, a picket guard. Shots were fired. One source says the Mexican picket fired first, alerting the main camp.
So the element of complete surprise was lost.
Seems so. The shots roused Castañeda's main force. Both sides then quickly formed up, essentially preparing for battle. There was this brief, tense pause, the sources say, where they basically rested on their arms, facing each other as dawn was breaking.
That must have been an incredibly tense moment, each side waiting for the other to make the next move.
Absolutely. The fate of Texas, in a way, hanging in the balance right there on that field.
What did Castañeda do then? Did he stand his ground?
He made a tactical adjustment. It was around 4 a.m., still very early, and there was apparently a thick fog rolling in. He used this cover to move his troops back slightly, pulling them onto a small rise, a mound nearby. He formed a new defensive line there.
Why would he do that? Retreating, even slightly.
It could be seen as seeking better ground, or perhaps still adhering to those cautious orders from Ugar Tequea, maybe trying to avoid a full-scale engagement as possible, while still maintaining a military presence. He was trying to de-escalate while saving face, perhaps.
But the Texians weren't having any of it.
No, they were fired up. As daylight broke and the fog began to lift, they saw that Castañeda had pulled back. They interpreted it as a retreat, or at least weakness, so they advanced quickly towards his new position on the mound.
And this leads to another key moment before the main fight, the parley, the negotiation attempt.
Yes, a crucial exchange happens here. Colonel Moore, the Texian commander, meets with Captain Castañeda. They talk.
What was said, this seems really important for understanding the justifications on both sides.
It absolutely is. Castañeda, according to the accounts, basically asks Moore, "Why are you attacking us? Why are you preventing me from carrying out my orders to retrieve the cannon?" He's reiterating his duty to the government.
In Moore's response, what's the Texian justification?
Moore lays it out very clearly. He and the other Texan representatives with him state emphatically that they are not acting against the legitimate government of Mexico. They are loyal to the federal Constitution of 1824.
Ah, so they're framing Santa Anna as the rebel, the one violating the Constitution.
Precisely. They declare they are resisting Santa Anna's centralist tyranny, the government of the bayonet. They are fighting to defend their established rights under the Mexican Constitution. It's a brilliant political framing. We're the loyalists. You, Castañeda, are representing an illegitimate usurper.
How did Castañeda react to that? That's a heavy charge.
The sources suggest he was somewhat conflicted. He apparently expressed some personal sympathy with the Federalist cause, saying something like, "Look, I might agree with you politically," which wasn't uncommon among Mexican officers at the time. There was internal division in Mexico, too. But, he says, "I'm a soldier. I have sworn an oath. I must follow the orders of the current government, whatever my personal feelings." He basically argues duty compels him. He then reportedly gives Moore one last chance. Surrender the cannon peacefully, avoid bloodshed.
And the Texian answer?
A firm no. Defiance. The parley breaks down. There's nothing more to say.
So talking failed. Now it's time for the cannon to speak.
Exactly. The Texians deploy their little brass cannon, the one they'd struggled to bring across the river. They load it, perhaps with scrap iron or chain, as proper cannonballs might have been scarce.
And they fire it.
They fire it. Possibly the first official cannon shot of the Texas Revolution, fired by the Texians. Accounts suggest it wasn't particularly accurate or devastating, maybe more symbolic noise than anything else, but it was fired. Then the Texian riflemen advanced, using the terrain, the fog, their marksmanship skills.
What was Castañeda thinking now? He's facing an advancing, determined militia. They've fired artillery at him.
He has a critical decision to make. He could order his dragoons to charge, to engage fully. They were disciplined troops. But he also has Ugartekea's likely orders in mind. Retrieve the cannon, yes, but don't start a major war if you can avoid it. Don't risk heavy casualties for this minor objective.
A fight here, even if he won, could ignite the whole province, and if he lost men.
It would be politically disastrous for Ugartequea and Santa Anna's aims. Castañeda likely realized this wasn't a simple policing action anymore. This was the start of something much bigger. Fighting a pitched battle against nearly 200 entrenched, motivated riflemen for one small cannon probably seemed unwise and potentially contrary to his broader instructions.
So he chooses
to withdraw. After a brief exchange of fire, the sources are clear, the engagement was short. Castañeda orders his dragoons to retreat from the field.
And the outcome? Casualties.
This is where the Texian victory becomes incredibly potent propaganda. The sources consistently report that the Mexican side suffered a few killed numbers, like 2 or 3 are sometimes mentioned, though details are sparse.
And the Texians?
0. Not a single Texian casualty. They finished the fight, as one account vividly puts it, without the loss of a man.
Wow. A completely one-sided outcome in terms of casualties. Castañeda retreats all the way back to San Antonio.
Yes, his force withdraws, leaving the field and the cannon to the Texians.
How did the Texians react? They've just faced down professional soldiers and sent them packing.
They were elated. They returned to Gonzales around 2:00 p.m. that same day, feeling, as the source says, well satisfied with this first rencontre. They had met the enemy, tested their resolve, and won decisively, without losing anyone.
That psychological impact must have been enormous. It wasn't just about keeping the cannon anymore.
Not at all. It was proof. Proof they could stand up to the army. Proof their defiance had teeth.
So let's sum this up. The Battle of Gonzales. Militarily tiny, a brief skirmish, minimal casualties, really. But politically, psychologically, it's huge.
Colossal. Absolutely colossal. It's the point of no return. It's the moment, as those sources suggest, comparing it to Lexington and Concord, where the colonists actively physically repel the first attempt by the central military power to impose its will by force and disarm them.
Let's really drill down on that Lexington and Concord comparison. Why did it resonate so much, and why is it significant?
Well, first, just like in the American Revolution, it allowed the Texians to frame themselves as the defenders, not the aggressors. The government troops came to take something, to disarm them. They merely defended their rights and property. That narrative is incredibly powerful for rallying support, both within Texas and, crucially, from the United States.
Makes them look like the underdogs defending liberty, not just rebels causing trouble.
Exactly. And second, it proved that the militia system, these volunteer farmers and settlers, could actually stand up to professional soldiers. It punctured the aura of invincibility the Mexican army might have held. It gave people confidence that resistance was actually possible.
So the victory, however small militarily, served these two huge political and psychological purposes.
Immense purposes. It showed unity, it showed willingness to use force, and it showed that force could be successful. After Gonzales, the idea of negotiating a return to the old status quo under Santa Anna just evaporated for most colonists. The ball of revolution, truly, was now rolling downhill.
Or going back.
No going back. That defense of one small cannon, 4-pounder, 6-pounder, doesn't matter. It represented the end of talking and the beginning of fighting. Fighting initially for their rights under the Mexican Constitution of 1824, but the momentum was now unstoppable.
And the news spread.
Like wildfire. Gonzales became a rallying cry. The story of the come-and-take-it flag. The zero-casualty victory against dragoons. It electrified the colonies. Volunteers started pouring in, not just from Texas settlements, but soon from the U.S. too. People realized war was here, and incredibly, maybe they could actually win.
It shifted the whole mindset, from anxiety and debate to action and maybe hope.
A huge shift. They'd fire the first shot, held their ground, won the first round. They had momentum, they had growing numbers, but they needed more than just spirit.
What did they need?
Resources, weapons, ammunition, supplies. Gonzales was a defensive victory. To keep the revolution going, they needed to go on the offensive. They needed to secure a proper military base, and more importantly, the supplies stored within one.
So where do they look next? After successfully defending a small town, what's the logical next objective for this emboldened volunteer army?
They set their sights on a much bigger prize, a major military installation, the Presidio La Bahia at Goliad.
Goliad. That's a serious fortress compared to Gonzales, isn't it?
Oh, absolutely. A historic Spanish, then Mexican, fort, stone walls, barracks, significant stores of arms, ammunition, food, and money. Critically, It also controlled the main road from the Texas coast, particularly the port of Copano, inland toward San Antonio.
So capturing Goliad would give them weapons, supplies, and strategic control over supply lines.
Exactly. It was the key to sustaining a larger campaign. Taking Goliad would be a massive escalation from the skirmish at Gonzales. It would mean seizing a major federal garrison.
The stakes just keep getting higher. The revolution is well and truly underway.
Yes, Gonzales lit the fuse. Goliad is where the Texians will try to seize the powder magazine.
So next time on our deep dive, we'll tackle that story, the daring capture of the Presidio La Bahia at Goliad, how this volunteer army took a fortress and the war escalated dramatically. Thank you for joining us.
And just think about it, all of this kicked off by the refusal to surrender one small, likely outdated brass cannon. It shows that sometimes the smallest objects can represent the largest principles. Defending that cannon meant defending self-government, and that principle had consequences that would reshape a continent.